Every American grows up believing that the government prints money. We picture the Treasury rolling out stacks of dollar bills, a simple system where Washington controls the nation's wealth. But the truth is far more complicated and far more revealing. The United States government doesn't truly create its own money. It borrows it. And the institution it borrows from isn't the government at all. It's called the Federal Reserve, and despite the word federal, it's not a government agency. It's a private banking system that holds the power to create money from nothing and then charge interest on it. The paradox is staggering. If the Federal Reserve can create dollars out of thin air, who does it owe those dollars to? To answer that, we have to go back in time, to 1913. In December of that year, after decades of banking panics and political pressure, Congress passed the Federal Reserve Act. Officially, the new central bank was meant to stabilize the economy and prevent future financial crises. But behind that mission was something far deeper. The Federal Reserve was structured in a way that merged public authority with private power. It would be the only institution allowed to create the nation's money, yet it would be owned by private banks. These banks, called member banks, would hold shares in the regional Federal Reserve banks and receive dividends on their holdings. In short, private financial institutions were given the power to profit from the creation of public money. Here's how the system works. When the US government needs money, let's say $2 trillion, it doesn't print it. The Treasury issues bonds, which are essentially IOs promising to repay the amount with interest in the future. The Federal Reserve then steps in and buys those bonds. But how does the Fed pay for them? It simply creates the money electronically. With a few keystrokes, trillions of new dollars are born. No gold, no silver, no physical backing, just digital entries on a balance sheet. The government then spends that money into the economy, on programs, salaries, defense and social spending. Those dollars enter circulation, businesses grow, jobs are created, and life goes on. But there's a catch. The government now owes the Federal Reserve the principal amount plus interest. And where does that interest come from? From taxpayers. Every year, a portion of your taxes doesn't go to build roads or fund schools. It goes to pay interest on debt owed to the very system that created money out of nothing. This is the heart of the monetary paradox. The Federal Reserve doesn't owe anyone for the dollars it creates, because they were never borrowed from anywhere. They came from nothing. But the government owes the Fed, and the Fed is owned by private banks, which means taxpayers ultimately owe private banks for the money they use every single day. The structure is elegant and deeply profitable. The Fed buys bonds, creates dollars, earns interest, pays dividends to member banks like J.P. Chase, Citibank, Goldman Sachs, and Bank of America, and then sends what's left to the Treasury. It sounds harmless, even cooperative, but look closer. The profits go to private shareholders first. Only the leftovers return to the public. The result is a financial system designed not to end debt, but to sustain it, forever. Because if all debt were paid off, there would be no money left in circulation. That's right. In our system, money and debt are two sides of the same coin. Every dollar is someone's debt. If all debts disappeared tomorrow, the money supply would collapse. This system has been in motion for more than a century. Since 1913, the United States has moved from gold-backed currency to a fully fiat system, where the dollar's value is backed by nothing but faith and the government's ability to tax its citizens. The Federal Reserve controls how much money exists by adjusting interest rates, buying or selling government bonds, and manipulating the amount of reserves banks must hold. When the economy slows, the Fed prints more money by buying bonds, injecting liquidity. When inflation rises, it tries to remove money by selling bonds and raising rates. But each time the government spends more than it earns, which is almost every year, it borrows again. More bonds are issued, more dollars are created, more interest accumulates. The debt never truly disappears, it just grows. Today, the U.S. national debt exceeds $36 trillion. The interest payments alone are larger than the defense budget. And yet, the cycle continues because the system requires it to. It's a design, not a flaw. The Federal Reserve operates independently, but it's intertwined with private banking power. Its regional banks have shareholders. Its board is filled with former executives of the same institutions it regulates. And every decision it makes, every rate cut, every quantitative easing program, directly affects the value of your savings, your paycheck, and your cost of living. When the Fed prints money, it doesn't hand it directly to the people. It enters the financial system through banks and asset markets first. The result is simple. Those who are closest to the money creation process, banks, corporations, investors, benefit first. Prices of assets like stocks and real estate rise. By the time the new money trickles down to ordinary citizens, prices have already increased. The rich get richer, and everyone else pays the price through inflation. In effect, the creation of money has become a hidden tax, one that transfers wealth from the public to the financial elite. This isn't conspiracy, it's arithmetic. When new money enters the system, purchasing power is diluted. If the supply of dollars doubles but goods and services remain the same, each dollar buys less, and yet the debt attached to those dollars still demands to be paid with interest. So as the Fed prints more, the debt grows, inflation rises, and ordinary people are left struggling to keep up. Over the decades, a few leaders tried to challenge this structure. In 1963, President John F. Kennedy signed Executive Order 1110, an attempt to issue currency directly through the Treasury, bypassing the Federal Reserve. Months later, he was gone, and the order was quietly reversed. Whether coincidence or not, the system remained untouched, and it still operates the same way today. The Federal Reserve prints money not for free, but for profit. It buys government debt, earns interest, and distributes returns to private banks before sending leftovers to the Treasury. It is the ultimate lender, one that cannot go bankrupt because it creates the very money it lends. Yet paradoxically, the nation that depends on it remains in permanent debt. Think about that. The United States can never truly pay off its debt because doing so would destroy the money supply. The system requires continuous borrowing to exist. And who benefits from that dependency? The financial institutions that own the mechanism of money creation. Every economic crisis, every boom, every bust, the cycle repeats, transferring wealth upward while the public debates politics, unaware that the real power lies in the hands of those who control credit. The Federal Reserve is often portrayed as a stabilizing force, but its very design ensures that debt and money are inseparable. This isn't just an economic structure, it's a system of perpetual obligation. Each generation inherits not only the benefits of the dollar, but also the burden of the debt behind it. And that debt compounds endlessly. The more the government borrows, the more the Fed creates. The more the Fed creates, the more inflation erodes purchasing power. The more inflation rises, the more interest payments grow. It's a loop without an exit, a monetary treadmill powered by debt. So, who does the Fed owe the money to? The simple answer is no one, because the Fed didn't borrow the money, it created it. But the government owes the Fed, and since the Fed is owned by private banks, the American people ultimately owe private financial institutions for the dollars they use every day. It's a system built on trust, debt, and control, a century-old design that ensures money always flows upward. For over 111 years, this mechanism has shaped the modern economy, quietly transferring wealth from taxpayers to banks under the illusion of national prosperity. Money, as we know it, is not wealth. It is debt, and debt by its very nature demands servitude. As long as money is created as debt, true freedom remains an illusion. History doesn't repeat itself, but financial systems do. And this one, from 1913 to 2025, has perfected the art of infinite debt. The question is no longer who does the Fed owe it to. The real question is, how long will we keep owing them?